our space, it might be things like resource navigation, transportation, things like that. But begin to really focus on the things that are going to help retain employee. Obviously, the better you do on the on the back end, the less you're having to worry about what you do on the front end. So that's another tip I would throw into that. Again, maybe we haven't had to pay as much attention to recently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see on our side, especially at some of the higher level positions, really being transparent about career pathing for folks that come in. I've not to make an overgeneralization, but I don't know that anybody does that really well. And it because it's really hard, right? I mean, that's a tough thing to make a commitment to somebody to say, this is where I see you going, even though we've known each other for 10 minutes. What's that?
You have to have some succession planning first.
Yeah.
You have to actually think ahead.
Exactly. And I think that the companies that are doing that really well are truly attracting great talent, because somebody who can come in and say, okay, I'm at A, but I want to get to C, and this company can help me make those steps to do that, I think sets themselves apart, not only now in a weird job market, but when we had virtually zero unemployment. Those were the companies that were doing a great job attracting great talent from their competitors a lot of times, to be honest.
Let me add one thing here. I've been taking some notes because I just love this discussion whenever we're talking labor pool, okay? And one of the things that is striking in my mind and is in the back of my head now are the baby boomers. 1945 to 1975 was a blip in history, like, whoop, okay, just nothing else like it. And we had more babies. We were in the baby producing market and we did great. And I am right behind the baby boomers. So they are the bane of my existence. I always had to go get more education because there was always somebody ahead of me that already had the job. Well, now they're all dying or they are retiring, which explains Florida's electoral votes. Okay. So I'm sitting here wondering, and I'm thinking about this all the time. Before the coronavirus hit, I had Honda suppliers with $15, $16 a year, an hour jobs, full benefits, 100%, couldn't fill them. Because, you know, this is a lot of work. I mean, you don't, nobody gonna pay you that. And understand, when I say full benefits, we're talking probably $30,000 on top of your wages for your full benefits. Okay, so now we got this Corona thing, and I'm sitting here thinking, and please correct me, tell me, I'm thinking a lot of baby boomers, and baby boomers, I mean somebody 65 on into the 70s, they're like, chuck it, retire. Just, I'm out of here. Well, that only leaves you with mostly the Gen Zers and Gen Yers who see the world completely different. And are we trying to fill jobs that we designed for the baby boomers with the Gen Yers and Gen Zers who are saying, forget that. I want this career path that Dan's talking about. I want this stuff. I'm like, well, nobody ever promised me that. Well, it's not 1950 anymore. So I see, and then I see Corona coming in and everything. I'm like, we've got, I'll tell you, hiring people and retiring and retaining people, throw the playbook out. You got to come up with some new stuff, and you better come up real fast, because I'm thinking 2021, 2022, with the exodus of all the people we relied on, I'll tell you right now, you will have a business and they will not be there to hire. I mean, I'll tell you, in 5 years, try to hire an electrician. Ain't gonna happen. So I'd like to know with you, how do you see the future of this and redesigning jobs? And just, you know, COVID has kicked us in the side here, something terrible, but also these people are not gonna be there that were 65 plus. They're not gonna keep working, particularly when there's COVID.
Walt, you want to take that one?
Yeah, jump on it.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I'm one of those awful boomers, Scott. So I think I'm on the very back end of that. Who has treated y'all so horribly? So
it's been awful. I have to surround myself with fun.
So it's interesting. You know, we have the millennial conversation often, and I always say it's gosh, that's exactly how we brought them up, right? To be eager, interested to learn, want to move ahead, right? That should be a surprise to us who were parents of them and everything. So
That they listen to.
Yeah. But yeah, boy, a lot to discuss on that, Scott. But certainly one thing does go back to what Dan was talking about, and even again, and even at our end of the labor pool and space, people are very interested in whether employers are going to invest in them. And again, that might be very again, a first level of training, because again, these might be high school graduates or some associates or that kind of thing. And I know we're beginning to see companies recognizing that more and more, and I think especially with what's going on right now with regard to concerns about employment and everything, you're actually seeing some government money out there helping employers do that. So I know Pandy and I have talked before about Tech Cred, for instance, which is a great program that allows companies to spend more in training money, for their employees. So I think that, gosh, and then we could spend a whole nother session, Scott, talking about kind of higher ed and alternative pathways to skilling and reskilling and all that kind of thing as well. I think all that's out there as well for what's going to happen.
Don't we as employers, because I've talked to my clients about this, and I'm basically telling them, throw out the rule book.
Yeah.
You got to be creative. You got to get these people, and they got to want to come work there.
Yeah.
Which means it's got to be clean. It's got to be safe.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, it's funny. I posted some stuff on my website. You'll love this, Pandy. My program, Tolerance and Diversity for White Guys and Other Human Beings. Okay, so it's based on the human animal. I will tell you, I have been inundated with calls on that program and hits on my website. I had to take out more web space for people downloading the videos and stuff like this because, the calls I'm getting is just like, oh my God, my people are demanding this.
Yep.
And they're not the baby boomers demanding it. They're Gen Yers and Gen Zers, and they this, and it's one guy was telling me, so we've never done this before. Well, it's never been 2020 before. Okay.
The other thing I'd add, Scott, there, and you kind of touched on it there, is easy. It's got to be easy for them. Yeah. Right. They're used to working off phones and apps and all of that kind of stuff. And if you have barriers in your process, delays in your process, all of that, you're toast with this group, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll actually add a differing opinion from the oldest millennial. So I, as part of the millennial generation, I actually think that this experience is going to be very eye-opening for my millennial cohorts. If you do a lot of reading on millennials, you'll kind of see that there's three buckets of different groups within the big target millennial. There's the group that saw the last recession. There's the group that kind of heard about the last recession, but were probably in school or in high school and it didn't really affect them. And then there's the group that grew up with 3% unemployment and plenty of jobs and gig economies and all sorts of stuff. And that's the group that usually gets the target label millennial. And so I actually think that some of these setbacks, job changes, uncertainty is going to be fairly defining for that group, and hopefully will, if there's a positive to come out of it, help with the backfill of those baby boomers who are going to start to transition to retirement and onward. And so that's my positive outlook on COVID for the day, I guess.
It's a reality check.
Yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the reality check for our business owners and our viewers is the following. So guys, please make sure my notes are good here. But engagement with your employees, your current staff, your roster, that is absolutely imperative. You need to be talking to them, and with talking with them, you need to be listening. Find out what's important to them. We have talked about this in the past. Because their needs are entirely different than what you might think they are, the world, again, is changing place. We've got parents that are now looking at each other trying to decide who's gonna quit their job just because the kids aren't going back to school. Who in the world would have ever thought of that? Yep. You don't want to lose the ones you've got. So get engaged with them and start talking about what's important to them. Be flexible. Please be flexible. If that's job sharing, if that means changing your hours of when they can do their work, if it means the in and out of they're there 3 days and they're remote the other 2, whatever it takes, be flexible if you can. Now, obviously, if the press has to run, the press has to run. But, you know, really, again, to Scott's point, think out of the box. Just and if you can't do it, then get out of the way and let somebody else run the company so that at least everybody still has a job. I that's pointed at a couple people. We'll keep moving on here. As for referrals, you know what? Why? I've got one organization that has 85% of their roster is nothing but people that have been referred into them, and they've got almost 100 employees. It is phenomenal what your employees will say about you if you're the right organization. And when they're recruiting in, you've got 2 legs closer to actually hanging on to somebody and somebody being there for all the right reasons. So don't hesitate to ask for referrals. And you don't even have to give a referral bonus. You might be surprised. Some of your best employees want to work with the people they love. So they will bring them in. I love the incentive bonuses that one of you talked about, whether it's, you know, a perfect attendance every week. We have to be careful about safety bonuses. OSHA doesn't like that. But, you know, there's ways. We used to, back when I was working with Mercy Health Partners, oh, Scott, I know you laugh with anything.
Yeah, the OSHA stuff, but well, there's a workaround.
Yeah. Hey, give a bonus every time you see them sanitize their section. It doesn't matter.
Squirt bonus.
Right. You know, come up with something. And again, it doesn't have to be money. Sometimes a gift card, sometimes buy lunch for everybody if you can afford it. Give them an extra PTO day for the rest of the year. There are all sorts of programs that you can put in place. And trust me, when your employees, I went to a Vistage program one day, and one of their speakers said, look, your culture is not what you write on the piece of paper. Your culture is what your employee says to her neighbor over the fence.
Yeah.
That's what defines your culture. So if they're talking well of you and saying, yeah, I got an extra PTO day off, or I'm not taking lunch today because they're buying us lunch, or my gosh, you know, people want to gravitate to that kind of stuff. So did I miss anything, guys?
I just throw in, I got some clients that they do this for their patients, particularly in the medical field, but they'll have computers there. How is everything today? Oh, it's just great. Would you mind sitting down here at this computer and entering your comments? Okay. It's like Glassdoor. You know, they'll do that with their employees, and they make it, you go home, you forget you're busy. But I'll tell you, it is a very good recruiting tool when people go out there and they can read some stuff about you that is good. Do I want to go work there? And that's a big issue with younger folks. Me, I was kind of like, hey, I got a job, I'm going to hold on to it like Daffy Duck holds on to a diamond, you know. But the times are changing, and everybody's a free agent.
Well, and no one's perfect. And Scott, you and I both know, we've heard it many times, oh, well, there's this wrong with them, or there's this wrong. I looked at one of my clients yesterday and said, well, for crying out loud, tell me all the right things again. And why would you not? And in this market, you absolutely have to understand you're not going to get the perfect person. So, and that's a great term to bring in personnel assessments, personality assessments and such. I do want to put a head of caution though, and Dan, jump in, Walt, jump in. I haven't had it yet, but if one of my clients were to say that they wanted to maybe back down their eligibility requirements, and I'm talking about maybe eliminate the drug test, eliminate the driving, you know, the qualifying for driving a company vehicle or something, I would really be hesitant to encourage that. There's a reason why we want to make sure nobody's on drugs if they're going to drive a forklift, or if they're, you know, I could go on and on there. There's a reason why we want to make sure that somebody has a valid driver's license and, you know, has insurance, is carrying insurance. You know, I don't want you to feel desperate out there. And that's why we're trying to have these open conversations so that we can kind of give you some things to think about. But boy, be really careful. I mean, if you're going to lessen your eligibility requirements, then fine, only check 2 references rather than 3, or don't give the personality assessment, save yourself $300 there. But yeah, be very, very, very cautious before you eliminate the drug test, the background check, and the driving.
Yeah, Pandy, I would agree with that, but I think there are things to be done in that. One is just looking at what you're truly, not in backgrounds or drug testing or such, but looking at what you're really asking for and the true qualifications you're asking for. And I think someone had mentioned, kind of flexibility and recognizing people have transferable skills and things like that. I think making yourself open to truly understanding what the entry skill set that you need is important. And so often we tighten those things up so much that we don't allow for good candidates to come in. And then I think there are, so maybe the one exception is I know we've had some success working with companies that are open, for instance, to second chance citizens. And so there are areas where, again, there are ways to kind of mitigate that risk and that kind of thing. But we've had seen some successes with programs like that. But, intentional, not just saying I'm throwing out background checks or something like that, understanding what you will allow, what the impact on your organization and culture would be, and some questions like that.
Yeah.
Hit on that one. That's a great one. Give Walt an extra $1 for today. That honestly, really, I'll tell you, you don't just hire anybody, but I'll tell you, there's a lot of folks that are going to make you great employees. You check them out a little bit, you orient them right. You wish you had more just like them.
I think we've seen something a little different. I don't know that we've really seen a reduction in drug tests and that sort of stuff at the level that we work on, but we have seen a number of our clients ask us to do contract roles or contract to hire roles where they're normally more of a direct hire position. I think that mitigates some of the risk for the actual company because those folks are on our payroll. And so we end up assuming some of that risk. So our calculations internally have been a little bit different. But yeah, we've seen a little bit of that. And I think to your point, Pandy, that you don't want to give away the background checks, the drug screens, the things that you're supposed to do. But there are some ways to get creative to mitigate some risk.
Well, and to that point, Dan, let me add this too, because Scott and I have talked about this on previous shows. If you want to do a testing period where you want to make sure that somebody has the skill sets, you just aren't ready to commit, please work through, I'm talking to my viewers here, please work through an agency as we're referring to as Aquarius or Walt and his team, please, because you can't do a working interview. And I've had so many companies say, oh, I'll just bring them on 1099 and we'll keep them 1099 until I decide whether I want them or not. Guys, that does not fit the Fair Labor Standard Act. You're just walking into a major pit when you do that. If you do attempt to hire with an agency, it's formalized, it's clean, that you can do, and it's still a bit of a working interview. But that's, I don't want to do that. And I really want to shy people away from trying to become gig workers too fast until you've really researched that as well. I talk to a lot of these higher execs and they'll say, okay, I want to pick your brain, or how did you start your company and what did you do? And I've almost got a list now that I give them and say, well, get your workers' comp, get your general liability insurance, and they glaze over after about 3 of those expenses and realize, well, wait a minute. And then you ask them, well, how are you going to get your work? And they just kind of stop there because work just does not come to us. So Dan, you made a really good point earlier. Unless you're a revenue generator and you can walk in as a contractor to a company and save them money or make them money, please, there are so many jobs out here with great companies that will give you a steady paycheck. Just watch what risk you take. It's different out here for independent contractors and independent companies. Guys, last words for our viewers. Anything else of huge importance? Dan?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I think to all the folks that are looking for jobs, be diligent and be calculated. It's so easy to apply to jobs on LinkedIn and Career Builder and all the other job sites that you just get lost in the wash and all you're doing is clicking a button. If there's a position that you're passionate about, I tell all my friends and family, apply to that job, and then the next day, pick up the phone and try to call HR or talent acquisition and ask about it. Make sure they got your information and make sure that they didn't have any questions. A lot of times you'll walk yourself into a phone screen by just doing that. I know at our agency, when we have positions posted and folks call in and say, hey, I just applied to that accounts payable role and I'm perfect for it. Can I talk to somebody? We love that. And so be diligent, be calculated, and you'll end up with a job.
Yeah, and I'll add one maybe more for the employers out there, and I think that's just a concern, and some of the economics I've seen on this are that we're potentially about to run into something like 12 million people on unemployed even after kind of some of the sifting that happens here. That's a major drain on our economy. And so the nice thing is all of you folks in HR and employer situations are the folks who can help us address all of that. And so I think my encouragement here would be to act quickly. So if you're in a downsizing company, take action, be generous, provide for the reskilling that needs to happen. If you're in a hiring and growing company, in this new economy, look for transferable skills, do the things that are going to allow us to move people in these positions. And then my second add on that is just don't forget that some of the folks most impacted through COVID-19 are folks on the lower end of the socioeconomic scale. And so let's really go back and look at those job descriptions and see where we can find entry talent and create opportunities for those folks as this economy transitions.
Thank you.
I love what Walt just said, because it made me trigger in my head. My favorite book of all time is Good to Great. And one of these things that the leaders, they just talk about, hey, get me somebody that's really good. I'll put them anywhere on the bus they need to go. I mean, a good person is a good person. Oh yeah, it's the best one. I destroyed one of those books by making notes in it. I had to buy another one, but it is just, honestly, I just think it's it's real life, but it made me think of that. It's like, get the right people on the bus and then move them where you want to. They won't disappoint you.
Yeah. And to Dan's point earlier, what was the book that we read when we were coming out of college? What color is your parachute?
Yeah.
You know what? I didn't read it because I was always kind of odd. I always kind of knew what I wanted to do. But to be very truthful, I would recommend that book to anyone, because right now in this time period, in this economy, in this society, if you're not excited about going to work, you're in the wrong position. You have to surround yourself with stuff that you feel good about and that you feel that you're doing for the right reasons. And quite frankly, your employers know if you're not happy. You may think you're hiding it, but you're not.
Let me ask you, because we got Dan and Walt here. I'd love to hear, do you run into folks that are looking for a job and they haven't updated their resume yet, or they got like pictures of them drinking a bong or something, or on Facebook? Do you run into folks like this?
Occasionally. We all have our personal networks too, and they know that what we do for a living is help people get jobs. And so a number of my friends reach out, hey man, you got any jobs for me? Well, we're going to need to go a little deeper than that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, we definitely have people constantly asking, at least our firm does, what's the job market like? What kind of positions are you seeing? Are you busy? Are you slow? And just trying to kind of help folks navigate that, at least at the onset. I think that once somebody has a resume put together and they know where they want to go, they tend to find their own way. But yeah, we do get those questions.
How about you, Walt?
Yeah, absolutely. Although again, we work in a little bit different space, so I don't know that it's quite as much of an issue on our side. More, more I think people are looking for growth opportunities. With us, how do they get into something? Again, maybe they're temping with us and they wanting it to get into a temp to hire and again into an employer. So it's more that side with us, I think.
Because my perspective on that, and Penny, you mentioned parachute, and I thought of Who Moved My Cheese, and it gets criticized a lot because it's so simple. And I'm like, well, simple's brilliant. The greatest thing in the world is the wheel. Okay, so you always have your tennis shoes around your neck. Even when you're in a happy position, you like it. Man, so I got to update my resume. Really? What have you been doing? Okay, you're like, I'm watching, Netflix or something. I'll tell you, always keeping it sharp. I mean, I tell you, if somebody calls up and they want you, you can say, yes, I am ready right now. And I don't have anything embarrassing on my Facebook I've got my resume ready, always. And I'll tell you, those are the people that are going to land on their feet.
The survivors are truly going to come out of this, and people are going to create businesses. We're Americans. You know, this isn't, it's try to slow us down, but it's not going to stop us. And that's why we have shows like this, because we want to share our ideas and try to offer some big solutions. Guys, thank you. Thank you very, very much, Dan, Walt. I got to pull Scott in a different direction.
Okay, that was great. Hey, you guys, that was fantastic.
All right, Pandy, great to join you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Pandy.
So, Scott.
Busy week already, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, I spent 3 hours the other day just going back. Just here's the message to the viewers. I'm spending 3 hours to make sure that I understand what the most recent changes and the most recent news is. When was the last time each of you went back and checked the date on some of the stuff you're referring back to? At a client, send me a protocol. You know, she's the ISO mentality, and she sent the program. Here's what happens if, and if you do this, you have to. Here's the procedure. And I went, oh my gosh, where did you come up with this stuff? She goes, well, and she sent me the link, and it was dated April. And I said, oh, well, here, let me give you the CDC site that's dated July 10th.
Yeah.
Guys, we understand that this is moving at the speed of light, and I can tell you right now, it's not going to slow down. So please, number one thing, get in there and double check what you are referring to.
Right.
And let us start, again, watch the show so that we can keep updating you, because you don't know who else is referring to that same material. You may know it's changed, but they don't. One of the big changes, though, that we need to talk about is the CDC and the IRS's reversal on the requirement for individuals to provide medical documentation. I'm saying medical documentation. I'm not saying positive tests. I'm saying medical documentation to be eligible for the FFCRA programs.
Right.
This is a big, big swing. And, if you remember, the documentation was justified by the IRS, driven by the IRS, because they didn't want fraud within those tax credits. They wanted you as employers to make sure that the individual who was requesting paid sick leave truly had the COVID, and it was related to COVID, right? We didn't want a bronchitis, and we weren't going to give a tax credit for somebody who just had a cold.
Right.
We wanted to verify it was COVID. They've taken that away.
Yeah. I mean, the testing, and every day this changes with the accuracy of the testing and the accessibility. I mean, I saw on the news the other day, people lining up for 7 hours.
Yes.
Get tested. So you see, everything sounds good in theory. And then here's what it's kind of like when you go to orientation and they tell you how things work. Then you go to your department and they say, okay, here's how things really work. Okay, it's like having Hagrid give you the inside scoop on how things really work and this stuff. And you got to remember, a lot of these things are written by bureaucrats who just really don't live in the real world, and they've never seen sunshine.
I don't think they're talking either. I really don't think they're talking to each other.
Oh, no.
There's no possible way.
Heaven forbid we'd share information.
Yeah.
But no, that's exactly right. These are requirements that are just ridiculous. You can't get them. And now everything is teleporting for your doctor's excuses. All you got to do is just tell your doctor that you got these symptoms, and he's going to quarantine you. He or she. Okay. It's that simple. And that's how things really work. According
to this fact sheet out by the IRS, all you need now, and it's fact number 44, all you need now is the employee's name, the date or dates for which the leave is requested, a statement of the COVID-19 related reason the employee is requesting leave, or written support for such reason. So if they've got a doctor's form, let's say their spouse tests positive.
There you go.
Well, a medical authority has proven that, right? So you can, the employee can go to the spouse's medical provider and say, hey, can you write me a slip? That's fantastic. Not required for the tax credit, but that would be fantastic. And then a statement that the employee is unable to work, including by means of teleworking for such reason. So remember how we coached you here a couple of weeks ago on the information to justify the children out of school, the basic information, just put it on a piece of paper. that's basically what this is saying. You know, we've taught you to put all your COVID files in a certain place. Well, now you're going to take this little piece of paper, probably written by with a crayon, and you're going to take this information and put it in. I would still, you know, Scott and I'm going to speak for you. We still want you to do your due diligence to record that you talked to them, you did as much as you can.
Yeah.
Here's the other issue too, Scott. I was reading that they're now estimating, and I haven't seen this on the CDC site yet, but they're now estimating that the antibodies are only going to last about 2 months in the body, which means like a cold or a flu, one person can, you know, get it again and again and again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a I mean, honestly, and you bring up a really good point, the difference between testing for antibodies and testing for COVID. Two different things, but yeah, it's really gonna, it's this, and that's one thing, the human race has always relied on not inoculations, but immunity.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I mean, we just don't know. I mean, I sort of qualify statements that I make because what we know right now is it's transmitted through your breath, the moist breath. It doesn't float in the air free form without moisture to carry it. Well, that's what we know right now. And maybe tomorrow we'll know something else. And so honestly, it really is something you're just going to have to watch every single day because you personally could have had it and you could have tested positive. You got the antibodies, but that'll take you to Labor Day, you know, so.
And you and I were talking a little bit before the show. Please help our viewers understand that you can't take your workforce and say, I want all of you to go and be tested. I just want everybody to feel good about it. We just all want to go and get tested.
Yeah, and look at the practical aspects. Now, first of all, you got a real legal problem under the ADA with requiring antibody testing. In other words, you can't do it. Okay, so that's just, it doesn't make any sense. Why would I care if you had the antibody unless I'm, you know, a researcher and I want your, you know, I want your plasma.
Oh, well, that's easy because the woman over in the back corner is terrified that she's going to get it and is coming up with every possible reason not to come into work. So if you can convince her that everybody has the antibodies, maybe she would feel better. It doesn't. It's going to take more than that.
Yeah, that's not going to do it. And first of all, that's not legal. It is legal to require people to have their COVID test, but let's just stop for a minute. As soon as I say that, where are you going to get it? I mean, where are you going to get it? Okay. I mean, I have not been tested, but I'll tell you, this goes back to what we talked about before, that when I hear my clients talk, I'll ask them a few questions. They'll say, oh yeah, they're afraid to come back and everything. Somebody's afraid. Okay. Did you put hand sanitizer everywhere? Okay. Do you have it everywhere? Okay. Do you have masks everywhere? Do you have cleaning solutions everywhere? Do you allow people to clean? Did you train them? Oh, we didn't train them. Then you screwed up. Oh, and understand, I'm not saying, wow, it would be swell if you trained your people in this, and it would be just nifty if you did these things. OSHA is telling you, do this. Do this. And you've heard me, you're probably sick of hearing me saying it. Oh, I got a free video. Okay. And I put it out there. I don't charge anybody for this half-hour video. It follows all the regulations that OSHA requires. Every person in your organization has to watch that because I still hear things that, you know, you're going to get it from witches. You know, you hear from all kinds of stuff that people they just make up. And as far as we know right now, there's two ways to really get it. One is through the moisture in somebody's breath, and two, you touched something with your hands and then you touched your face. Yeah. Primarily, that's how you get it.
OSHA does not require contact tracing, but the CDC does. So,
well, you can try that. You can try that. Yeah, that's rough stuff. I mean, understand contact tracing goes back to the 1850s in England to trace, I think it's typhoid, or is it diphtheria? Okay, one of them. The sewage was all leaking into the well that everybody at this facility was drinking from. So that's where it comes from. Okay. And this doctor figured out that if I traced where everybody had this, and then one person was way over here, and you found out that she got the water from this well at this facility. You know how much time it takes? You know how many millions, no, billions of dollars that we spend on do your best. Okay. Now, if you're coming up with 15 cases at your facility and you've got 100 employees, oh yeah, that's pretty coincidental. But I still go to Kroger. I live my life the way that I still do, but I take these precautions. I don't go to bars and, do that kind of stuff. But I'll tell you, most of the people I see there, a lot of people that I see just out and about are not wearing a mask. So you're going to get it that way. I mean, they're going to give it to you. They don't take off their mask correctly. They grab it right here. They don't grab it. They do not hand sanitize. And I'm like, no wonder it's spiking. No wonder it's spiking. So, but ADA, understand, if I get symptoms of COVID, and if I certainly get COVID, I will tell you right now, the EEOC has come out with some warnings that, these ADA claims are going to be spiking.
Oh gosh, absolutely.
These days, there are 2 laws that apply to everybody in this country, and you need to know them cold. And honestly, if you don't know these cold, an expert, you can't be in HR. Okay, ADA is one of them, and Fair Labor Standards Act is the other. Anybody with more, because everybody gets paid. And you mentioned earlier about, well, I'll just make them all 1099s. Oh yeah, nobody thought of that since, like this is passed in 1938. And I think by 1939, they'd exhausted that. But you're not going to think of any new scam that's new. And if you got more than 50 employees, here comes FMLA. And I'll tell you, those are laws that you will deal with in the next 30 days.
No, you're forgetting my favorite. Come on.
Oh, NLRA? Yeah. Oh yeah, I've still had these calls where, well, this person is complaining that I had this last week. I got somebody that's complaining that such and such isn't wearing their mask, and I just sent her home. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Can you spell union? All right.
Prime time.
Oh, and yeah, and honestly, ADA gets actually, honestly, I should probably do a video on the National Labor Relations Act, because it applies to everybody, all private sector folks, and they don't know anything about it. No. But I'll tell you right now, if you are non-union, you're a private sector employer, and in some public sectors in some states, I will tell you, if an employee is complaining about you in management, they have a right to do that. We actually have cases where an employee has gone out there and called you an a-hole, okay, the president. And the president, I'll tell you, in most companies, you go out and call somebody that, like the president or his wife or his kids, you're getting fired. Okay, well, guess what? You're getting your job back. That's illegal.
Another old subject. I also wanted to just go back to, listen, quarantine.
Yes.
Scott and I just talked about quarantining. If you think that they're showing symptoms, it's absolutely essential. And the CDC has put out a phenomenal quarantine if you might be sick. Yeah. This thing breaks it down for almost about 6 scenarios and gives you a
right.
It's really, really nice. I sent this out to some of my clients this past week and did really, really well. I also want to encourage everyone again, if you've got multiple states and municipalities, and I'm talking about, let's say Toledo, we have Ohio, Toledo, Cincinnati, Columbus, some of these municipalities are doing their own thing when it comes to the masking and in terms of the self-reporting and temperature checking. Please go to your state list. If you cannot find it, get a hold of Scott and I. We will send it to you, because it's all across the board as to who wants you to actually take the temperature at the door side, or who can call in from their home. And let me tell you, we have been very fortunate. If you haven't seen some previous shows and you're a first-time viewer, we go back into our archives because we brought you 2 very, very wonderful platforms for applications on reporting and maintaining health records involving COVID. I have to tell you real fast, Scott, Matt Strippelhoff got a hold of me this past week. Yeah. They are just rocking that program.
I got an email from him and he invited me, and I happened to be booked. I said, I can't do it at this time. Shoot me another one, because honestly, my clients need the tracking software to make this stuff easy. I'm all about easy. I like easy. I like apps. I like whatever. So I don't have to do a lot.
And we just talked about trying to reassure and engage with our current staff that everything's safe, that we're doing everything possible, and we're using technology to do that because they're so sophisticated. These are two very sophisticated programs, one from Cordata Health, who was on the show last week, and then Red Hawk Technologies, a company right here in our backyard in Kentucky. They have another platform. They're both very, very distinctly different, but Scott and I were both impressed with both of those. So
you need something.
I encourage you to go out there. Again, thank you again for watching today. We thoroughly enjoyed doing this show. Ann Netter, Director of Business Development from Aquarius Professional Staffing, and Walt Tracy, owner of At Work Cincinnati and Kentucky now. You did a phenomenal job helping us better understand why there's unemployment. Thank you, ICRC-TV, for giving us one more week. We hope to be here again next Tuesday live at 3 o'clock. My name is Candy Pridemore, Principal Consultant and Founder at the Human Resource USA. Stay safe.